As you can notice, we're here with this off the stage, and it's a living room-like settings we have. We want to create a kind of a family atmosphere. And today we can see we have an excellent crew of the honorable guests. We have ambassadors, we have diplomats, we also have experts who have really profound knowledge in the world affairs from both China and Ecuador. Okay, welcome everyone. So before we dive into our discussions, I have a really quick survey here. I want to know, are you a regular tea drinker? And what is your first time drinking a Chinese cup of tea?
I am a regular tea drinker, so I drink mate every day, and I drink Chinese tea every day too.
Bueno, yo creo que he descubierto el té en China porque en Bolivia, si bien tomamos té, lo tomamos siempre cuando hay algún dolor de estómago. Pero aquí en China tomo el té para que no me duele el estómago. Quiere decir que todos los días tomo té y eso me parece extraordinario.
It's funny, but I discovered the tea when I was 13 years old here in China. When I was a child, my father came here to teach Spanish in 1963. At that time, the only thing you can drink here is tea because at that time there was no coffee in China. Our national beverage is coffee. At house, we had amount of coffee, but usually we had tea for breakfast.
It's so exciting to know that back in like old days in China, there's no cup of coffee and how China has changed.
At that time, coffee for the people was like bourgeois drinking. They had the idea that the coffee is a kind of drug. I remember when the camarades of my father and my mother came to our house, my mother always say, "Do you want to drink a coffee?" Oh, no. No.
You prefer tea over coffee for your own habit?
No, actually, I prefer wine.
Oh. You have a consensus here.
For me, it was Molihua, jasmine tea, and the year was 2006, September. Was my first authentic experience with Chinese tea in Jiaotong University.
It must be a very special occasion. You remember the date so clearly.
It was my first experience looking at the tea culture. In Grenada, we do have tea leaves as well, and it reminds me of a herb called Santa Maria. It's the name of a herb that we use as tea, so it has a very similar taste. So that kept me almost at home.
I really hope we can have some jasmine tea today so that you can feel at home too, right?
I'm going to feel at home today because we are having some mate later. So same as the ambassador of Argentina said, we are big mate drink. I learned a lot about tea since I arrived to China. Before it wasn't that much. I'm not much of a tea drinker, but the smells, like Ambassador was saying, the smell of jasmine and many different varieties of teas that you have here, they're amazing. But I stay on the mate side.
When I came to China about 15 years ago, and I started meeting my Chinese friends, and then one of them said, "You should try oolong tea. You drink 3 times, right? But the first time you should close your eyes, and then oolong tea will let you remember your first love." Since that day, I really prefer oolong tea, and I have these memories.
Fascinating. We did, actually. We are really lucky. We have oolong tea today, so I hope you really like it. Speaking about our topic today, our first panel discussion is about navigating the tide. So when we speak about the tide, we usually talk about inevitable force that can bring immense possibilities. So putting a world arena, we are seeing the global south that is accounting for over 40% of the global GDP. So I'm curious to know from all of us today, how do you see this trend of global south rising and how do you define it?
When we talk about the rising of global south, we are talking about facts, and we are not discussing any particular leadership. And developing countries have been struggling historically for finding their place and their own way of satisfying their people's needs. That is a struggle that is still on. Cooperation between countries of the South is crucial. The reinforcement of cooperation among developing countries is something that we should all be celebrating. And in that regard, China is a very good partner for Latin America and the Caribbean. Of course, that the challenges are still there, and there's a long way to go still, but we are doing the correct thing.
What impressed me is like you were saying this is a group of no leaders. It's all about partnerships.
South-South cooperation is that. It's a collaborative effort that you know what are your counterpart needs, and it's a reinforcing scheme of learning from each other and benefiting mutually.
No, I strongly believe that it's a result of the many exchanges, cultural, educational, and of course in the field of sport, which has now gotten to the stage where it has created a clear understanding in the different regions, cultures, to better understand that we all face similar challenges. I can use myself as an example. Like ambassador, I lived in China for a long time as a student. So I had the opportunity to attend classes with only Chinese students. I was the only foreigner in my class. That created a bond. I am, as a person who, a Grenadian, what are our likes, our cultures, because we spent 4 years in the same space. So they understand me, they understand my culture, they understand Grenada. So it is in that light you find that those exchanges creates, I think, that trend, that push.
An interesting anecdote I want to share. You said we are Laoxiang, right? You are also from Inner Mongolia. You just told me.
Iban Lao Beijing, Iban Nemongo Baotou.
Feeling so close.
Why I say Lao Beijing is, you know, whenever you embark on a new educational stage in life, because you're trained in a new field from scratch, so it's like you're born again. So I came to Beijing to do my bachelor's degree, so I consider this Lao Beijing. And I say Baotou because my principal, or the leader of the International Student Office in Beijing Jiao Tong University, played the role of my mother away from Grenada. Till today, we still have that relation. She's just like my mom. And she's from Baotou.
Like a reborn.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll continue with our topic. How about you, Martin?
For me, it's my first time in China. I am getting a different education. You know, I'm learning about China, about the people, about the culture. So we are also, besides being the representatives of our states and governments, we also represent our peoples, and we bring these learnings back home, and we share it with our families and friends all the time when we go back. And from the point of view of Latin America, or at least my country, I have to say this is a new thing. Our relation and our knowledge of other countries of the global South. We, because of our past, are very much focused on the North, on Europe, on the United States, but we are related to the North in terms of our own history. We are learning more, we have more contact, we always known about it, but it's closer now. Also giving us some new tools, new options to cooperate and to grow in a different way, I would say. It's a very exciting time.
El mundo de hoy está transformándose, está reconfigurándose, y por eso creo que es importante mantener una relación de cooperación, de trabajo con los países del sur global y con China fundamentalmente, que creo que es el actor más emblemático, más representativo del sur global en este momento.
Yo creo que todo lo que ha sucedido en los últimos 30 años, gracias a las iniciativas de China de construir un mundo más global, el sur global, ha hecho que regiones completas del mundo, como eran África y América Latina, hayan tenido un impulso y un desarrollo que de otra forma no hubieran conseguido. China, cuando yo llegué en el año 63, era un país del tercer mundo, como Colombia, como Argentina, y la dirección que ha tomado China de planear inteligentemente su desarrollo ha permitido que se convierta en una gran potencia. Yo creo que transmitir ese conocimiento, transmitir esa disciplina, transmitir esa forma de proyectarse hacia el futuro nos traerá muchísimos beneficios a nosotros.
We can tell from our diplomats here that the Global South is actually not one-size-fits-all entity. It has a really complex background. It's either from cultural identity or economic situations. So I would like to reach out to Professor Wang. What are the common threads that are uniting these Global South countries?
45 years ago, when China just opened up, it was only account about 2% of global GDP. Today, almost 20%. And then, of course, countries like India, like Brazil, like Argentina, I mean, many, they are really getting a bigger share of the global economy. We have a China-Latin American Summit, China-African Summit, China-ASEAN Summit, Gulf Summit, Central Asia Summit, you name it. It's all economically focused. So I think the landscape, the unipolar world, which used to maybe account 80% of the global economy, now only account about 30-40%. BRICS countries' GDP purchasing priority is bigger than G7 now. So I think that economic threat of global south rising is enormously big phenomenon that the structure of the global governance has to reflect that. The unipolar world is gone, multipolar world has arisen, but we don't have a multipolar world governance yet. So I think that global south countries like the ambassador sitting here, experts here are enormously important to contribute to the future governance. I think this is why that Global South gets so much attention, so much talk about. Even President Trump a few days ago said, oh, if a BRICS country wants to denounce the US dollar, I'm going to levy 100% taxes on that, which is ridiculous. While the other countries are building high fences, small yard, or raising tariff, China is reducing tariff. So in that sense, I think China is playing an active role in promoting Global South and really working with all the Global South countries to make a more diversified, more inclusive, and more sustainable global world.
I like to follow up on Professor's answer because I believe truly that rise of the Global South is a hope for humanity because the demographic composition of the Global South is mainly young people. And the leaders of the Global South have two aspects that unite them. The first is they hope to trade their commodities freely, without restraints and without middlemen like we had 100 years ago. The second is that we hope to build a peaceful society in which we can have self-determination and sovereignty in each of our countries, not external pressures. And by doing this, then we take our eyes from war and put our eyes into development, which is what most young people and leaders in the Global South want.
To take our eyes from war to development, that's very impressive. We're talking about Global South rising, but at the same time, we are seeing the world has already been dominated by the Global North for over 200 years. And, the Global South before has always been the receiving end of either imperialism or colonialism. So during this shift of the balance of power, how do we deal with the possible conflicts the world may be facing? How do you think we're going to find a solution and way out?
Yes, how can we sustain this global stability, peace, and prosperity? So look at the past 80 years of the Second World War experience until now. We haven't had Third World War yet, but we're at the brink of that now because of the imbalance of the world and politically, economically, and geopolitically. You remember when the Bretton Woods system started, you had the World Bank, you had the IMF, you had the WTO, you have all those international UN, all these institutions. You really guarantee or maybe supported the rapid rise of the West. Actually, you had the Marshall Plan as well. So that's how that sustained us for this number of years. But now that imbalance is really getting out of control. So my solution to that is let's really maximize economic globalization. I think what China has done for Belt and Road Initiative, which is a great initiative, and then stimulate all the Western countries to catch up on that, like Build Back Better World, B3W, EU Global Gateway, India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor. Yes, let's all do the infrastructure, tackle the infrastructure deficit. So that's one way to really balance that. The other thing is that I think we should really also pursue more economic globalization rather than geopolitical globalization. I think we are seeing now there's so many over-secularization, militarization of alliances, AUKUS or Quad or Camp David, of course NATO expanding because of the Russian war in Ukraine, all those things happening. But I think China is really using this economic globalization. They launched, of course, Belt and Road, but they are also established AIB, but they joined RCEP, the largest free trade agreement in the world, which is now ASEAN's China's largest trading partner. And also, they are trying to join CPTPP. The world is out of balance. The North is no longer able to provide all the public goods. We should avoid the Kinderberg trap, where U.S. used to provide all the public goods for the world. And now they said, me first, make America great again now. But let's say make the world great again, working for the Global South. So I think, the way to solve that is really to have the Global South work together. Of course, working with EU, with US, with all the Western countries. Let's really have a more balanced world, inclusive globalization. If you work on that, centered on the UN principles, stick to the UN Charter, we should be able to sustain peace for another 80 years, so to prevent any major conflict.
Indeed, what is better way than doing business together and getting rich together?
All of us here are UN members. We all believe in multilateralism. We have the tools already there. The multilateral system allows for all of that. All of the institutions are there for us to use. And I agree, much more coordination and cooperation among the Global South in the using of those tools and institutions that are there could bring better results for all of us. I think within that, the UN and the multilateral institutions, it is very interesting to see the Chinese initiatives, which most of us are supporting. The initiative for global development, for instance, is supporting something that already exists within a framework that is already there, established by all of us and agreed upon, by all of us.
I do believe that economically, creating that economic bond would be one of the ways we can sustain such a development, particularly going back to, again, people to people, institution to institution, government to government, and party to party. Now, why? Institutions are the driving force behind the economy, businesses, etc. And politics, party to party, sometimes that's where the conflict happens. So developing the party to party relations such that the different parties in different countries or regions understands the model that China has been doing with the poverty alleviation, with the environment, the ecological development. I think that will be the two key pillars to maintain the economic closeness to sustain we will all like to see, which is peace, prosperity, and development.
De ese anclado y viejo al mundo multipolar, y esa configuración obedece a la suma de voluntades de diferentes países que han ido abonando cada vez más una forma de replantear las relaciones internacionales. Lamentablemente, Estados Unidos plantea un mundo todavía diferente. No se quiere sumar a un mundo multipolar donde las decisiones pasan no de manera unilateral, sino que tienen más convergencia. El mundo visto desde China desarrolla otra forma de la diplomacia y las relaciones internacionales. Mientras en Occidente se promueve la guerra, lamentablemente la guerra, porque eso es lo que está sucediendo en Europa, desde este lado del mundo se promueve puentes de infraestructura, de comercio. La franja y la ruta es una forma de conectar al mundo, de motorizar el comercio. Se miran formas de desarrollo y de auspicio de paz. En las últimas horas, últimos días, hemos visto diferentes estallidos de conflictos que si bien son localizados, pero hoy se conectan. Y claro, en eso está el mundo hoy. Nosotros apostamos por ese mundo. No queremos un mundo donde se tenga que intervenir en las guerras, se tenga que tener la dictadura del dólar, de la moneda, de la divisa, se tenga que recibir sanciones, bloqueos. No queremos ese mundo. Queremos un mundo precisamente que es el que propone China y otros países, que es construir puentes de desarrollo, de integración, de comercio, de cultura, y a eso creo que apostamos hoy, creo que la mayoría de los países del sur global y del mundo.
From my capacity as ambassador of Argentina, I would rather say that Argentina believes in free trade, believes in freedom, and will engage constructively with any country that is sharing our values. Argentina believes so much in free trade that it's the only country, at least in Latin America and the Caribbean, that have not imposed tariffs on Chinese steel. And also, I would like to flag that Latin America and the Caribbean is the only peace zone free of nuclear weapons. We believe that the more trade we can have, the less conflicts will arise. So, and in that regard, we share a lot of values with China. China is also supporting openness of the economy and also always advocating for peace. So regardless what you can see that is going on around the world, there's still room for trying to get a peaceful world with more trade and more cooperation among all of us.
Thank you. That's really fascinating talks. I think all of us, maybe we need a short tea break now. Us enjoying a fascinating journey with a cup of mate. Now, please welcome Jorge Wang for the demonstration of this beloved drink, mate.
El mate que es una bebida de América Latina. Para hacer el té, el mate, en Argentina que está esperando la hoja cuando están más gruesas. Y para tomar el mate necesitamos el mate, la bombilla y la hierba de mate. Y Gabriela le vas a enseñar cómo se sirve el mate.
Primero, bueno, llenamos el mate de yerba. Hay que ponerle bastante. Algo que es una característica del mate es que, bueno, cuando se le pone la yerba, se hincha, permiso, un poquito, se le pone agua caliente y se espera a que la yerba se hinche un poquito. Luego se coloca la bombilla. Somos muy materos, tomamos mucho mate y lo hacemos durante todo el día. Jorge, es que el mate se comparte con quien estemos. Que el mate es algo que nos sociabiliza mucho.
Bueno, que disfruta para todos.
Now, as we proceed to the second panel, we'd like to invite Jorge Goldes from China Daily to be the moderator.
A ronda de preguntas nos vamos a centrar en las relaciones dinámicas que hay entre los países de América Latina y China. Bueno, China es el segundo destino de las exportaciones. Argentina. ¿Cuáles cree que son las oportunidades de desarrollo que apuntan a una visión común de futuro?
China para la Argentina es un socio muy importante. Es un gran comprador de productos argentinos, tanto agropecuarios como minerales. Es un gran inversor también en la Argentina en infraestructura y en otros sectores. Tenemos la suerte de que nuestras economías son muy complementarias, con lo cual la potencialidad de la relación es enorme. Hoy por hoy la Argentina defiende el libre comercio, la apertura de los mercados y las libertades individuales. Y en ese sentido, cualquier país que comparta esos valores obviamente va a encontrar en la Argentina un buen socio, y cualquier país que quiera abrir su economía y comerciar con la Argentina, lo mismo.
La contribución de China a la reducción de la pobreza mundial supera el 70% y se ha convertido en el primer país en desarrollo en alcanzar la meta de reducción de la pobreza de los Objetivos de Desarrollo del Milenio de las Naciones Unidas. ¿Y cuáles son los casos exitosos de aprendizaje a partir de la experiencia china?
Bueno, Bolivia empezó una revolución democrática cultural el año 2006. Bueno, China empezó el año 49. De alguna manera hay un ciclo histórico un poco diferenciado, pero con muchos aprendizajes importantes que se han traducido en observar el desarrollo de China en el tiempo, la transformación. Pero en Bolivia nosotros hemos acuñado un modelo económico, social, comunitario, productivo, el modelo económico boliviano. Eso ha permitido reducir la pobreza, ha permitido al menos incorporar a 3 millones de bolivianos a una mejor calidad de vida. En los últimos 15 años ha habido mejoras, pero en estos últimos 15 años también hemos desarrollado una agenda estratégica y hemos escogido a China como el socio estratégico para poder industrializar nuestros recursos naturales, principalmente el litio, tierras raras, zinc, hierro, entre otros. Y eso en el marco absoluto de la soberanía boliviana de nuestros recursos naturales, pero encontrando la sinergia y la convergencia con un socio como China que se identifica con el sur global, se identifica con nuestras preocupaciones, nuestras necesidades y obviamente eso ha permitido abonar una relación bastante robusta entre ambos países. De hecho, Bolivia hace 20 años atrás era uno de los países que siempre estaba, como se dice en el fútbol, bien abajo de la tabla. Hoy estamos en la mitad, ¿no? Estamos en el medio. Es decir, Bolivia ha ido mejorando su situación y el modelo económico, social, comunitario, productivo en Bolivia ha permitido hacer ello. Y hemos encontrado con China, insisto, una sinergia, una convergencia que permite que entre ambos países nos ayudemos a mejorar los programas de desarrollo social que se están implementando en Bolivia. De hecho, todo el proceso de industrialización productiva mayormente está secundado por la tecnología que tiene China.
Colombia está en camino de ser parte de los países de Belt and Road Initiative. ¿Cómo cree usted que beneficiará el desarrollo de Colombia y, por supuesto, la consolidación del sur global?
Colombia quizá es uno de los últimos países de América del Sur que va a firmar. En ciertos países, en Colombia, por ejemplo, hacer infraestructuras solamente porque hemos firmado la franja y la ruta. Toca preparar el terreno para que los proyectos se aprueben en el Congreso antes de que se puedan materializar. Mi sensación es que los empresarios colombianos son muy pasivos, están como esperando a que les hagan ofertas para hacer algo, pero están dispuestos a vender lo que les sobra, pero no han tenido la visión de Argentina o de Brasil, que hacen planes a largo plazo para producir las cosas que China necesita. En general, los empresarios en Colombia prefieren negociar con los Estados Unidos o con cualquier otro país que tengan tratado de libre comercio. Yo creo que la firma del memorándum contribuirá para que esos empresarios empiecen a ver a China como un objetivo real, como con más perspectiva de ampliar nuestras relaciones.
As the previous ambassador said, Latin America is the only country that nuclear free, right? I mean, China has announced that China would not use nuclear arsenal first, will never be the first user. Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, it's all big country. It's such a big landmass, and that infrastructure is a challenge. So China has also had a big landmass, and China has accumulated huge experience in building infrastructure, roads, bridges, speed railway, ports, 5Gs, you name it. Even though Latin America is just next to the United States, but we are, a good partner with Latin America because we believe in a common prosperity for the mankind, and we don't really want to interfere with each other. We all have a colonial past. We are now shake up on that, and then also we want to be responsible, a stakeholder of a global system that we all both benefit so much. But China and Brazil has this 6-point peace plan for Ukraine and Russian war in Ukraine. And actually we had this also Friends of Peace at UN. Many Latin American countries are in that. We also have a similar views on the Middle East, the crisis. We share a lot of global perspective together. Given the size, given the economic complementary, given the cultural exchange, China and Latin America will have another golden years for the next 50 years.
En pocos minutos vamos a disfrutar una ceremonia del té, cómo se prepara, cómo se sirve, que es parte de la cultura de China. Cuando uno ve este tipo de ceremonias, uno se sorprende porque es algo que es propio de una cultura que no es la propia, ¿okay? Que son características de una cultura que estamos conociendo. Y por otro lado, ¿cuál creen ustedes que es el aporte de tu propia cultura en beneficio de esta iniciativa?
Hay un concepto filosófico en China que es la indivisibilidad del uno y el todo. Y entonces eso quiere decir que el individuo es parte de la naturaleza y no se puede separar. Y entonces, bajo ese concepto, es importante también pensar que los futuros acuerdos de comercio que China firme con el mundo, como ya lo ha hecho con mi país, con el Ecuador, no solo incluya a la mercancía como el bien máximo de ese propósito, sino incluya, le dé prioridad al ser humano. Eso va a ser muy importante porque va a hacer que los ciudadanos de los dos países puedan tener protección en cuanto a la capacidad adquisitiva, pero también va a proteger a la industria local porque sería un suicidio ir hacia un tratado de libre comercio sin pensar en nuestra propia industria. Entonces pienso que es un momento importante en el que el concepto filosófico, que ha explicado al inicio, de la indivisibilidad del uno y del todo, el ser humano y la naturaleza, puedan aplicarse bajo esta filosofía china y que los ecuatorianos, que los latinoamericanos lo podamos comprender a plenitud.
China is always a peace-loving country. 2,000 some years ago, China already built a great wall. They basically, it's an agricultural interland, and then the Chinese people really cultivate on this land. And Confucius said, if your parents are alive, don't travel far away. So it's not like Normans or a horse on the nations. They're going to have a big expedition, going so far away to conquer any place. Like even during the Ming Dynasty, there's a marshal called Zheng He, which had 7 expeditions as far as go to the Africa. They never colonized any place. They just come back 7 times, even earlier than Columbus discovered America. So you see that the Chinese culture is always peace-loving and very friendly. And we're drinking tea. This is a great culture of China as well, which means let's have a dialogue, let's have a good time, relax, like we're drinking wine or drinking coffee from Colombia. So I think we can work together because we're peace-loving and prosperity building and development focused.
Si el memorando de la franja y la ruta sirviera para importar bienes intangibles, lo primero que importaría desde China sería el espíritu que hay en China, donde lo colectivo prima sobre lo individual, de darle importancia a las cosas que benefician a la comunidad y restarle importancia al bienestar individual, aunque desde luego todo el mundo quiere vivir bien y todo quiere feliz y tener mucho dinero, pero yo siento que eso ha hecho, eso que es parte de la cultura china, porque es una cosa ancestral que viene de muchos años, es lo que ha permitido que China en tan poco tiempo haya logrado superar las dificultades y construir un país con una economía tan poderosa como la que tiene.
Thank you so much for your answers. I think we are going to enjoy the tea ceremony, right?
This is the fine art of making a perfect cup of fragrant tea. The first step, clean tea set thoroughly. It's the foundation of a good brew. We also need to slowly warm the cups.
To warm all the cups?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, should I move closer?
Then drop the tea leaves into the covered bowl. Next, pour water in. Now, here's the key move. Pour the tea soup quickly.
The first soup is to be dumped away. We don't use it and drink it.
Yo ya soy experto en esto.
Nice. Careful. Wow, nice try.
Muy bien, embajador, muy bien.
Cuidado que de arriba.
Thank you for
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias. Sí, eso.
谢谢。
Okay. Atrasadísimo.
Thank you so much. It's very good. Thank you.